Hey guys, no frills episode this week. I'm just putting this together last minute on a Wednesday night. We interrupted this week's regularly scheduled programming for that GameStop episode. We're right back with Crying a Lot 49. My guest in this episode on chapters 4 and 5 of Crying a Lot 49 is Liv Lansdale. I found her on Twitter with the delicious Twitter header of the Crying of Thought 49, as in that hoe over there, 49. But yeah, so we got into some shit here. Really cool episode. I like Liv. I like what she's doing. You can find her on Twitter and Instagram at We Live in a Society. That would be live with a Liv. See what she did there? At We Live in a Society. Again, name is Liv Lansdale. She has a podcast she is working on right now that, again, really has a talent for titles, titled Blurbslut. So yeah, take this as a blurb to go check out Blurbslut. No songs this week. We're going to be wrapping up Crying a Lot 49 next week with Chapter 6 and my friend Marlena's McMahon Perk. And then I don't know what we're getting up to from there. Go check me out if you want to go see some comedy. Thursday, February 18th, Williamstown, New Jersey at Rack's Bar and Grill. I will be doing a show with Cricket Comedy. Go check out cricketcomedy.com. That's cricket with a K. Well, that's cricket with two Ks. That's cricket, Kricket comedy. Comedy has no Ks.com. Go check it out on April 2nd. If you are in Central Eastern, Northeastern PA, I don't know how that works. I'm going to be in Easton, Pennsylvania at the Greek Meat Guy. I looked into it. That is the actual name of the place, the Greek Meat Guy, for the Easton Comedy Offensive. Come check me out. I wrote some really interesting stuff. I'll give you guys a little bit of a preview. My stepfather died over a year ago, as happens. My mother has this weird thing with adorable, innocent nudity. Yeah, I'm just gonna start with no context and tell you that. She has framed photos of me and my brothers like naked all at one point or another. My graduation photo was the worst. My mother randomly sends me today, like, oh, I'm going through old pictures and I found this one of Kenny, my stepdad, in the shower. And it's just like a side hit. If you go on Twitter, I think I put it up, or on Instagram. Oh yeah, follow me on Instagram at jessedraham, at Kill Your Gods. Send emails at jessedraham.com. jessedraham@gmail.com. Hello. So I saw this photo and it's just like my dead stepdad's ass in the early 90s. Like, okay, mom. Like, I've had conversations with her about this because like a friend came over with their like 2-year-old baby and the baby was just like running naked in the backyard and my mom just sent me a photo of this naked child I don't know, and I had to write her back like, mom, I'm on the fucking bus, like I can't be opening this, you can't just send me this. She sends me this weird photo of my stepfather's ass in the shower. I'm like, okay, that's weird, but it's my mom. I look a little closer. I'm like, is that me? My brother's name is Kenny, like, is that Kenny in the bathtub? She goes, no, that's you. Like, why am I in the bathtub with my naked stepdad? That's what? She's like, man, you were friends. You liked him then. It was probably your idea. Like, mom, I was 4. Like, can you imagine, like, fucking, like, okay, honey, we've dated for a little bit now. We've dated for 18 months. It's time we take this to the extra step. I want you to shower with my child. Like, what the fuck? She's like, man, you showered with your dad. Like, that's my father, you know? Like, I don't want to see my dad's dick, but if I see my dad's dick, like, I'm at least learning about my origins and roots and shit like that. Oh, God. Anyway, that's my mom. My mom might be on a podcast soon. Not mine, though, but I'll promote that when it comes out. So, yeah, come see me do comedy and discuss my weird upbringing and taking naked showers with my mom's boyfriend at the time. Uh, fuck, I've gone on. Crying Lot 49, Part 3, Chapters 4 and 5 with Liv Linsdale. We'll see you guys next week.
Hey, we're back. It's the Kill Your Gods podcast. Today we are covering episodes, chapters 4 and 5 of The Crying of Lot 49 by Thomas Pynchon. I don't know. We'll find out. My guest this week is Liv Linsdale. How are you doing?
Oh, it's Lansdale with an A.
You know what? I can read that. I just misspoke, and I don't know why.
Okay.
Liv
Once you start mispronouncing Pinchon, everything else goes to hell.
I totally did not mean to do that. Have you ever tried to do that where you like swap letters on something just to be silly, and then you're kind of like stuck in that groove for a minute and keep messing it up?
Oh, it's a magical, powerful thing. When my friends are really in a bad place, I instruct them to replace every vowel of whatever words they're about to say with the double O, and things immediately get better.
Wowza.
Zuzu.
Yeah, I've noticed that before. Like, if you try to intentionally put a stutter on something as just like an affectation, and then I'll find like I can't get out of it at all. So funny how that happened. So Liv, tell us social media, where we can find you, anything you're working on, anything you want to promote.
Should we do that at the end when people get to know me?
Well, we'll repeat it at the end.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
My Twitter handle is We Live in a Society, which is all one word, and there's no E at the end of the word live because it's a dopey pun on my name.
Nice.
And my Instagram is at blurbslut, which is all one word, which is a podcast that I'm about to launch, as well as a number of other deranged things.
Perfect. All right. Yeah. Go out and check out blurbslut. That's a great one. Your Twitter header right now is actually how you came to my attention. The Crying of Thought 49 is pretty mwah.
Thank you. I like to have a fun display name.
I am so bad at Twitter that I just forget to get to anything like that. So what is your literary background? How did you get here? How did you discover Pinchon? What do you think of the man in general and his work?
I think really highly of the man. And Pinchon, if you're listening to this, I am a radically accessible person. I would love to have a conversation with you. As for my own background, I saw a crescent shell in the sand on the beach when I was very, very little, and I said, "Moon fell down." And my mom was like, "Damn, my daughter is a poet." They gave me a lot of stuff to read. I had like a lonely only childhood, and I read all the time, and I filled notebooks with really really like precocious poems. And as long as I can remember, though, I've always kind of bowed before the altar of the novel, and I've studied fiction academically. I majored in English in college at Columbia. I got really into critical theory when I was like 18 years old. And Columbia is the place to study critical theory. And but then I also just kind of I've always loved having conversations with writers, because maybe this is a fantasy that I've been indulging in my whole life, but I've always felt like the more you speak to writers, the closer you'll come to the big truth of how they do it, and then you'll then be able to do it. So I snuck into graduate seminars in the creative writing MFA, and then I realized, wait, you can also major in creative writing with some of these same professors as an undergraduate. So I took on a second major, even though I transferred in. And there's a big core curriculum at Columbia where it's like, oh, every important book in the history of Western literature, you got to read that. So it was I was taking a lot of classes at once for the 3 years that I was there, and I regret nothing.
I was going to say, I've heard the experience a lot of people have is being forced to read for school. And I've hear so many people who hit like a lull in their literary intake after school or during school, just because so much of their reading is mandatory that like they end up not fitting in a lot of voluntary reading as a result.
No, I I was a dog walker for my first 5 years out of college before the plague happened and people had to walk their own dogs. Tragedy. But anyway, I did that because I want to be reading at all times. I need language in my brain. I stream audiobooks all the time. And another fantasy that maybe I've been indulging in is like, if I read enough contemporary literature, I will get an editorial or agenting position at a big prestigious literary organization here in New York. Also, I've had 9 unpaid literary internships. But my career has been at a standstill, and it's like all I have is the love of literature itself and the love of talking to other writers. And again, before the plague, I used to go to readings every single night.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, that's awesome.
It's expensive to live in New York. It is crazy to live here. So if you're not taking advantage of what you have culturally available to you, what are you doing?
True. Yeah, I've considered New York a lot just because this podcast does a bunch of different things, books being one of them. My main thing is comedy. That's where I came from and all this. That's how I fell into making a podcast about infinite jest.
I thought so. Yeah.
Yeah. But like New York is like the place everyone like, you have to go to New York, you have to go to New York. And it's just, I don't understand how anyone can afford to live there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I come from money, and my father died and left me all of it. So that's the answer for you. But also, I have an angelic landlord. Woo! Sorry.
Oh, God damn it. I wish this was a video podcast right now.
That was my dream catcher falling. Every time.
That's a great sign. Like, yep, things are looking up for me. Plunge.
Every time I talk about my career, my dream catcher falls. Anyway,
you were talking up your landlord, and he just like donkey kicked the opposite wall.
No, if I texted him right now, he's with his girlfriend out of state, and they're adorable together. But if anything I need, I really feel like his princess. Like he provides. But the main thing that he provides that's a godsend for me is irrationally low rent for young creatives. So it was a professor who lived in this room that I'm in now. She was the first person to teach me how to write fiction when I arrived in New York. And the day before I graduated, I was going to just move in with my dad. I thought I had a job at Grille. I didn't. And I was like, what am I going to do with my life? And I checked Facebook, and this woman that I liked a lot said she needed a roommate last minute. And that was in 2015. So I've been here in this house ever since. And my landlord, shout out to Knud, has been really supportive.
Nice. That's a great New York like renter's fantasy. Like,
look, it's been a struggle. There have been times when I have nearly given up on this house, but I shan't leave.
We're considering at some point. My fiance's friend lives in Weehawken, and that seems like maybe a compromise. I don't know. We'll get around to it anyway. So, Crying a Lot 49 is what we're talking about. What are your thoughts on this book as a whole? Is this like a high one in your particular ranking of Pinchon?
Oh yeah, the highest for me. I'm someone who can't follow regular plots, like a Marvel movie. I am not able to keep in touch with what the characters' motivations are, why they're in this setting, what they want, who did what to whom when. I'm really just I experience art in the moment. I'm paying attention.
I hate Marvel movies so much because I know you're talking about that as like normal plot, but even that as normal plot kind of frustrates me to such a huge degree that because I have a lot of friends who love those movies. These tend to be the same friends that like they'll read comic books but could not read a novel to save their lives. And it really does kind of bother me that like a film like The Godfather, which is mostly like men speaking sternly to each other for 3 hours, that used to be like summer blockbuster, but now it's like my generation can't handle that. What if we make Don Vito, like, put him in a fucking cape and like make him invisible? Then we can get these little ADD, millennials to sit still and pay attention for a little bit. I just hate that everything needs to be like birthday party, like sanctified to get people to pay attention to drama.
I blame the studios a little more than I blame us as a generation, though. I don't think that they're providing exactly what we really want. I think they should all be far more. They should take bigger risks.
Yeah, I guess you could say that because like it feels like TV has kind of picked up the slack that they dropped, and I know a big portion of that is just Hollywood overall. Everything needs to have global appeal now to really make its money back. So anything that has any nuance of language needs to be like dumbed down and simplified. Like I think that's why they said action movies do so well because and comedies do so poorly because an American comedy is not necessarily going to do great in China because who gets it? Like China is not going to understand Superbad everybody understands a giant robot attacking your city.
I believe. Okay, yeah, that's a fair point. I think the popularity of superhero movies these days is also their ways of talking about trauma, like the whole origin story, the what superpower is born of extreme isolation and strength in adversity. I think Americans are kind of, I'm not going to say uniformly because we're all traumatized in different ways, but it is a universal aspect of what it means to be an American is to carry a bunch of it.
Yeah, okay, I could definitely say carrying your scars is very American at this point. But anyway, yeah, so Crying in Lot 49, why is this like one of your favorite of Pynchon's output?
Well, he can get exhausting, you know? This is one of the craziest things I've done. I listened to Gravity's Rainbow as an audiobook, like walking around out on the street in public with dogs, just really explicit sex appearing unexpectedly. But he's a very energetic writer, and I am grateful for the brevity with this one. But I love slim little dainty books. Like I'm one of those Bluettes worshippers. Do you know that one?
Wait, what was it?
The book Bluettes by Maggie Nelson.
Not at all. What
You know, a lot of comics should read it, I think. It's funnier than people
Okay.
get it for. But it was like a game changer. It's this very slim book, and it's as much poetry as it is fiction as it is nonfiction, and it's this list. Each paragraph has a number in front of it, and it's just a woman sort of meditating on heartbreak, but it's like eat your vegetables intellectual.
Okay, I'll look into that. Bluettes by who?
Yeah, by Maggie Nelson. And
By Maggie Nelson.
Really the only thing that book has in common with this book is that they probably have roughly the same number of pages. I'm just saying I like a book that you can read in an afternoon.
Right. Yeah. Like that's a big part of the reason I chose this as like our first book club after Infinite Jest, because after Infinite Jest, everyone was like, do Gravity's Rainbow. And like, I am not doing another 6 month anything on this.
Just as likely as David Foster Wallace read Gravity's Rainbow and he was like, I should do Infinite Jest.
Yeah. Well, you know what's fun? I don't know, because Crying in Lot 49 is the first Pynchon I have ever read. Like I'll be honest, haven't finished the book yet. I am still in the process. I could knock it out in an afternoon, but for the sake of this podcast, I try to do that going along. But after hearing a lot of comparison, it's like they're both in the same genre, but I find Pynchon's storytelling so much more like, I can follow this. I understand what's happening. It's not, the guy has an interesting way of expressing, as opposed to Wallace, who I feel is like intentionally confusing at every turn.
Yeah. But they both are interested in disorienting the reader.
True.
Yeah.
I'll give him that. Yeah, there's parts of this book that feel like very dreamlike, just in how the action kind of progresses, especially
psychedelic even.
Yes, exactly. All right, I think we can get into our summary here. So again, this is chapters 4 and 5. Again, interrupt anytime you have anything to say. Okay. So after rereading Pierce's will later on, Oedipa has a renewed sense of purpose. If this really was Pierce's attempt to leave something important behind, she owed it to him to do it. Oedipa goes to a stockholders meeting for the Yoyodyne Company, a firm owned in part by Inverarity. Stockholders, she is seating between two elderly twins, both of whom take turns putting their hands on her thighs.
I always picture Diane Arbus character, figures from her photography when I read.
I could see that. I could see it. After taking a brief tour, she stumbles into the office of Stanley Kotex, which, only looking at this now, is that meant to be a reference to Kotex, like menstruation pads, or?
Oh, we've got Mike Fallopian.
We do have Mike Fallopian. Okay, we're making connections.
What do they mean?
Heavy flow day. I don't.
Yeah.
So meet Stanley Kotex, who is drawing the muted post-horn symbol on his pad of paper. Posing as a stockholder, they have a discussion about teamwork, which Kotex dismisses. Random, what are your thoughts on teamwork? Because I've always hated it, and I'll just start with that.
I was definitely that kid in grade school who was like, I know this is a group project, but I'm just going to do it all.
Yes.
And I'm trying to not be that person as an adult, because I do believe in synergy. I believe that teamwork is a beautiful thing and that everyone brings something different to the table. And I like it when you encounter something that it's like, this collaboration needed to happen, you know?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, no, I think collaboration definitely can work, but we talk about teamwork, I immediately think of two things. I think of school and I think of employment. Both are cases where collaboration is usually determined by whoever the fuck you're paired with. So are you going to be paired with somebody who is as interested and motivated, or are you going to get a paste eater?
Mm-hmm.
And I always ended up with a paste eater.
Mm.
But yeah, and we get some.
I have a tendency to pick the people who no one else was picking to pair up with, because I didn't want them to feel unwanted.
Oh, you're an empathetic person.
I was, but now I'm a frigid ice queen. I rebranded.
That is the proper Pokemon evolution of a person. Though you at a young age you feel bad for the kid, scratching his ass and then sniffing it, and then after enough attempts that, like, okay, maybe they're better off alone. They're happier alone. That's what I think. I think I'm happier alone too. Get away from me. It's
I tea very slowly, listeners.
Okay, so Kotex tells her about a scientist named John Nefastus, who has built a type of Maxwell's demon, or a physically impossible machine that allows for perpetual motion by violating the second law of thermodynamics. So this is one of the confusing things I've had by watching this. Is there like an actual demon at play here, or is it just the piston? Or I'm not entirely sure what they're suggesting here.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say not an actual demon.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that there's a lot of crazy stuff that happens with Pinchon, but none of it is actually supernatural.
Okay. Yeah, Kotex encourages Oedipa to meet with Nefastus. She tries to pretend she knows what WASTE is, but she pronounces it like the word waste, which gives her away. So, Liv, can you think of an example where you tried to seem informed or cool and that backfired on you?
I'm hoping it doesn't happen in this podcast.
We're not there.
Like the story of my entire life.
Yeah, I think, what was it? Oh God, I remember this was like back in the chat room days of the internet, and I think I definitely come across sympathetic in this story. But this is kind of like my introduction to music snobs, people I fucking hate. And I had heard a Pantera song where like the lyric is respect, walk, what do you say, whatever. But I didn't know that at the time. I was like 12, 13. So in a random chat room, I asked like, hey, what's that song where it's like breathe, sweat, or whatever? It's like, and a bunch of people were like, this is the fucking wrong lyrics, you poser asshole, noob, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, oh, I'm sorry. I forgot you came out of the womb listening to fucking Slayer and were never a nerd trying to get into something, but I tried to double down and pretend like, no, I knew that I was joking around, and then I became a comedian to cover my ass for all time afterward.
One of the men I interviewed for a book project a couple of years ago is a huge Slayer fan. I think he'd like that story. I'll put you in touch with him.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
So while we're here, because that was also about a misinterpretation, you and I got in a little bit of a discussion of pronunciation off air.
We did.
Yes, we did. So what did we come down to? Give us the background on that, because you messaged me saying we weren't sure. How do you pronounce Pinchon? Have we gotten? There's some controversy here.
Well, I think we should take his word for it, because he pronounces his own name when he has that cameo on The Simpsons.
Mm.
I believe he says Pinchan.
But you said there are things out there saying it was Pinchin, or
I feel like that's how you were pronouncing it before.
I barely pronounce my name the same way twice.
Yeah, I have handwriting that looks like 12 different people's. I've gotten in trouble with my own bank. They're like, "Are you stealing yourself?"
You aren't quintuplets by any chance, are you?
Wish, man. I was so lonely for so long.
You know what, let's talk about that for a second. I feel like literary people have a few things in common, and a lot of loneliness tends to be one of them. Now,
Yeah.
I had siblings growing up, but I was the oldest, and we were all like 5 years apart, so it was a little different. Also, I was just not good. Whatever. I'll give a lot of context. My mother's best friend was murdered by a serial killer when she was 17. And as a result, my mother was very paranoid about me. So I was not allowed to leave the yard until I was 13. So
You might serial kill someone.
I might serial kill someone. I mean, that would be, that would almost be like, I want to protect you from doctors, but also if you became a doctor, that would be okay. But yeah, so I found solace in books at a young age. I remember reading all the Goosebumps and Animorphs books to the extent that one of my teachers, an English teacher, every asshole teacher I ever had was an English teacher. One of my teachers, when I was like 8 or 9, called home and said, "Jesse's reading too much."
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, that's what I would do during recess. Instead, I don't want to play. I need to I need to see what's going on with the Animorphs guys.
I had a really mediocre history teacher when I was in 6th grade. He was like a climate denier and just
Great start.
problematic person. And he told my parents at a PTA meeting that when I grow up, I might be something like the power behind the throne to a very influential man. I was in 6th grade. I don't think that behavior was manifesting with any of my male friends. I have no idea where he got that idea.
Hi there, Mr. and Mrs. Lansdale. Liv's doing great this year. I think she might be Ava Braun.
Yeah.
God.
I know. The part is like I just got out of a 4-year relationship with someone who did have a fancy career and I do not have a fancy career, and I was like, damn it, how do I break out of this destiny?
Oh god. Well, see, while I'm doing Crying a Lot 49, I'm actually watching Game of Thrones for the first time and doing a podcast about that with my fiance. So I'm seeing a lot of that, like, the woman behind the throne kind of like manipulation shit.
Yeah, but also a lot of women getting raped for no reason for the plot.
Not
no.
I'm only in season 2. I'll be honest, not as much as I was expecting. I was expecting way more rape.
Okay, great.
I'm
sorry.
Watch Game of Thrones. Not as much rape as expected. Frankly, kind of disappointed. Oh god. Okay. Okay. Later, she and Metzger discuss Kotex at the Scope with Mike Fallopian, who mentions the disillusioned corporate inventors face that they have had society lie to them about the singular inventor theory. And we kind of hit on this with some of the teamwork talk, but I guess that is something in popular culture that people have to deal with. Because when you think of inventors, you think of like these individual people like, Edison, Tesla, but there's always like some kind of group involved. Like, I mean, Marconi is known for the radio, and apparently there's some other poor bastard that we don't even remember in this country who actually invented radio. So wanting to learn more about the Courier's tragedy, Oedipa gets an anthology of Jacobean. This was another one we could not figure out what the exact pronunciation was. Jacobean.
No.
Revenge plays. She notices that the paperback copy has no mention of the Trastero, however, which puzzles her. She decides to go to Berkeley to meet with the publisher. In the meantime, she stops by an elderly care home that Pierce had owned, where she meets an old man with a ring depicting the muted post horn. So, real quick question here on the topic. As the novel goes along, we start seeing the post horn everywhere.
Yeah.
Can you think of an example from your life where, like, something you saw for the first time and then suddenly it was absolutely everywhere?
Watching the TV show Girls, I started watching it before I arrived in New York.
Mm.
And I thought that I would have all of these girlfriends who were like the girls from Girls, but instead, every man I met fit into one of those archetypes.
Oh, wow.
It's like, do I want this to be true? And my mind is like squeezing these men who are unique butterflies into these archetypes, but it had an uncanny quality. So many Rays in my life, still today.
God, that's interesting. See, my closest thing I have on this, I always notice when there's something that just like went over my head. Like there's so much in, and I don't mean philosophically, I mean just in like engaging in art, because I feel like there's pop culture stuff that everybody misses. The song Hallelujah by Leonard Cohen, famously covered by Jeff Buckley. I don't think I heard that song for the first time until 10 years ago. And a lot of people were like, are you kidding? I've known that since I was like 9. But as soon as I heard that, like actually sat down and listened to that song for the first time, I noticed like, oh, it appears in like 10 of my favorite movies. Like just something about it. It just never got through to me. I don't know why. Anyway.
So, did you not see Shrek when it came out?
I saw Shrek when it came out. I think I was more stoked that like they animated Tom Waits into the end of it. I just missed. I only had enough room for a poetic vanguard singer-songwriter. I only had enough RAM to remember one from Shrek 1, and that was Tom Waits.
I think it was the Rufus Wainwright cover that they featured in Shrek, but I couldn't tell you for sure.
Interesting. Okay. She hires a stamp expert named Genghis Cohen, which is a great fucking name.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love character names like this. Does Pynchon always have like interesting? Can you think of any off the top of your head that are particularly cool from other books?
No, I cannot. But yes,
perfect. Moving on now.
It's funny. I listened to every second of Gravity's Rainbow, and I could not tell you one of the 400 character names. TV show Dark. I don't, except aside from yeah, no, I don't remember anybody's name.
So she hires Genghis Cohen to go through Pierce's stamp collection. After doing so, Genghis tells her that some of Pierce's stamps have a muted post horn in the watermark. Oedipa begins to realize she is uncovering a large mystery, and I believe that's the end of that chapter. Oedipa goes to Berkeley to meet with John Nephastus, who shows her his perpetual motion machine. She walks on. Their meeting is baffling.
I know. Don't you hate it when you get to know a man and he shows you his perpetual motion machine?
Well, before the perpetual motion machine, she comes in and he's just like watching like pretty much a children beauty pageant. It just says it's little girls dancing, and he just says like, oh yeah, I find girls that age cute. And Oedipa just says like, oh yeah, my husband's the same way. And then Nephastus gives her like a big shit-eating grin and then shows her the machine. Like, oh, well, I was really going to play coy, but you validated my pedophilia, so let me go show you my impossible perpetual motion machine.
Yeah, this novel has one of my favorite sex scenes in all of literature. If I were Oedipa, like, I would never stop putting clothes on. With this cast of characters, every page, it would be like, and then Liv put on another sweater.
So, all right, you know what? Let's go back and talk about that chunk a little bit, because I really like that part of the book, even though it, I feel like we didn't know Oedipa enough at that point, so it seemed kind of weird that she just got very quickly seduced by this former child actor turned, whatever. And also, yeah, unlike the other chapters, we completely lost the paranoids in this chunk of the book, which bothers me because I love those fucking weirdos.
That's why I'm dressed the way I am. I'm dressed like a paranoid groupie.
I can see that.
Yeah,
I can see that.
this is not a visual podcast, but my own podcast that I'm about to launch, people are telling me that it would be wise to make it visual, so I'm practicing, hence this big elaborate set behind me.
Nice. Very nice. I hope that is a fully integrated outfit and that you also have a fistful of marijuana in one of the pockets.
I'm still seeking employment, so I will.
Guys, it's in the book. We're not talking about that. I
do the rest of this podcast in that SoCal baby voice drawl that you hear in Inherent Vice. Doc wasn't a do-gooder, but he did good.
He did okay. I love that sex scene, but all right, shed some light on this for me, because I had this question after that first episode where after she has the fling with all the clothes and Metzger, and they're pretty much like post-coital laying around, and she asks him, "What did Pierce tell you about me?" And he responds, "He said you wouldn't be so easy." Like, is that implying that like Pierce wanted Metzger to seduce her? Was I reading that right?
I feel like it's all it's really saying is that these are the type of men who cannot discuss a woman in terms other than, is she down to fuck? That's all that it signaled to me. I don't know if it's a conspiracy to bed Oedipa. I don't know.
Okay. So as somebody who reads a lot, and I wanted you on this podcast because you seemed interesting, but I also wanted a female voice, so it's not just a bunch of dudes talking about this Oedipa. What do you think of her presentation, especially since we're at a time in literature and fiction of all kinds right now where people are really criticizing anybody writing a character, especially a protagonist, that is a different person than themselves. Now, in this case, I mean, it's a man. Say that once more.
You mean like the identity angst? Like, can men write women? Should they? That kind
exactly. Yes. How do you think Pynchon and Oedipa has their symbiosis in here?
Well, first of all, I don't think Pynchon is interested in creating characters the way fiction up until that point in history was interested. Like, especially beginning around Henry James, there was this idea that like fiction writers create characters to show you what the psyche is, and the character has to be deep, and you have to really, like, that's what realism promises. Like, you can never truly know another person in your own life maybe, but you can read Madame Bovary and you see every facet of this woman. Pynchon is like a little kid playing with dolls. He's like, we're gonna have this dude has a silly name, he's gonna say some silly things, and boom, he's gone. Now we're having the nice person. And so the fact,
and then Oedipa's gonna put on all the clothes and go to Kurt, and they're gonna go
exactly. Yeah, like it doesn't bother me that Pynchon has not endeavored to make her the most realistic or three-dimensional human. I'm perfectly fine with her having a silly name and being a little cartoonish. For me, as a critical theory junkie, I love this sex scene because it feels like it's winking at the literary movement that he championed, which is postmodernism. Like, this idea of, first of all, Metzger, I really don't know anything about Hebrew, but I looked this up, and Metz supposedly means to find.
Okay.
So Metzger could mean like finder. And so he's seeking something from her.
Well, so real quick, and I only know this because one of my favorite comedians, his last name is Metzger. And
is it Kurt Metzger?
Yeah, I love Kurt Metzger.
Yeah, he's not the person who used to be involved with Amy Schumer, is he?
Yeah, he was. He's
the guy, he really fucked up. Damn it.
Yeah, he's good at putting his foot in his mouth. I won't excuse that. I'm trying to get him on the podcast to talk about being a Jehovah's Witness, so I can't say too much. But he said before that I think his name translates in German to butcher. So
like butchered his own career.
Well, that too. Yeah. I mean, you're really not wrong.
because it's when these creative men do dumb, destructive things, you know, it's like the reason why I get so upset over it is because I was rooting for you, you know? Like Inside Amy Schumer was a fucking funny show, and it was feminist in ways that I appreciated, and yeah.
You know what's funny? I was just watching the last night a great sketch from Amy Schumer where they had like a boy band song where the song is "Girl, You Don't Need Makeup," and pretty much in the video, the whole first verse is like, you know, you look so much better without that. Throw that shit in the trash. And then the second verse, they see her without the makeup, and then immediately start walking it back. Like, oh wait, hold on. Like, I think there's actually a line in there like, you know, girl, when I told you to not put on makeup, I thought it was like when you rip up a carpet expecting hardwood underneath, and instead you find dirty linoleum instead. Like, these are just
that famous Jonathan Swift poem from the fucking 18th century, just like lambasting womanhood for being so gross with our various slimy substances that we put on our faces.
Yeah, I feel bad because my fiance's a very big feminist, which, you know, she should be. Why wouldn't you be? But in a lot of the teasing, I think I do kind of take the role of that like anything womanly. My first response is like, oh, okay, gross. Which, like, she knows I don't mean that, but I don't know.
Well, you could make the argument that you're being an even bigger feminist by celebrating the ways women's bodies are gross too.
Exactly. We're all gross and disgusting, and none of us should touch each other. And I just think you should really respect my position and my background and my trauma. Shit. Oh yeah. So okay. Overall, fuck. All right, we can get back into it. Oedipa goes to Berkeley, where we. All right. Speaking of Metzger, I did notice in these chapters he really drops off. It seemed like he was a prime mover in the story, and in this entire section, I think he has like one drunken argument with Mike Fallopian, and that's it.
Well, listen, Pinchon is all about decentralization. There's no primary mover in the form of a single, like, you know, like everything is a constellation.
Okay. Yeah, I guess that.
Can I go back to the sex scene for a second? Because I didn't actually know what I was going to say. So postmodernism is about this absence of a primary mover. It's about that there isn't necessarily a one-to-one direct relationship between sign and signified, right? And so for there to be a sex scene where a man is trying to undress a woman, but they're just more, you know, it's turtles all the way down. It's like every time you get underneath one layer, there's another layer. Like, that's, to me, that felt like a dramatization of what postmodernism is all about.
Yeah, and it's a great way of, you know, turning the old adage on its head, where, like, you know, the man is going to have all the power, suggesting this game, like, oh well, I'll tell you, but you're going, for every answer you get, you're going to take off an article of clothing. And she says, ooh, okay, Big Daddy, let me just go freshen up real quick. And then she comes out wearing every piece of clothing she has.
Boss move.
Yeah, looking like a bloated tick. Like, are you ready for me, Daddy? Like, okay. Okay, so the perpetual motion machine can only be operated by people with special mental capabilities, allowing them to communicate with the machine. And he tells Oedipa that he has no such mental skills. She stares looking at it for a while, and then eventually she's like, it's not working. And he goes, oh, okay, well, you want to fuck instead? Like, really creepily. I didn't like it. I don't know. I feel like I've known men like Nephastus who, like, as soon as they get that little bit of like, oh, they're treating you as slightly more than a stranger, they're like, all right, great, let's fuck. Suck my dick? Yeah? No?
Right. His name is the perfect combination of nefarious and fastest.
What is fastest?
Fastest, like he came the fastest. Like, it was bad sex, and he was
like actual speed.
Yeah.
I'm dumb. Like, if something's even like slightly spelled differently, I'm lost on that. Okay, but that's another name. Like, I was actually going to mention this before, how those names can really not work. Like, they need to be right on the level of, like, it can't be too corny. There's a very cheesy prog metal band I like called Dream Theater, and they made a concept album, which was just so bad because it was like, all right, concept album. What's the lamest idea you can have? How about a future where music is outlawed? Like, okay, if this was your third grade music class idea, A+ banana sticker, sure. The name of the bad guy character in this concept album is Lord Nefarious.
Ooh.
Which was just like, guys, too on the nose. Like you might as well have named him Dr. No Goodnick. It's just bad. So he propositions her, she runs out screaming. Oedipa then begins a very, very long night of wandering around aimlessly all over the Bay Area. And this is where I feel like we get a little bit of that psychedelic thing. She ends up swarmed into a gay bar that somebody sneaks in and like whispers in her ear and puts a name tag on her breast with the name Arnold Snarb. And I kind of get the... Did you watch BoJack Horseman?
Yes.
Love it. I almost picture this as like the Undersea episode where he keeps getting herded with like the anchovies as they like move en masse from place to place, and he's just kind of stuck in the middle. So she gets kind of swarmed into this gay bar where she encounters the muted post horn symbol almost everywhere, leading her to believe that she may be hallucinating. She meets a man who tells her a history of, I know it's WASTE, I'm just going to say waste, existing after a man placed an ad in the LA Times asking people to respond with reasons not to kill himself. He got no response until one day a bum knocked on his door with a sack of letters from people who'd attempted suicide and failed. Despite this, they could come up with no reason to continue living.
Yeah, I love just the prominence of letters in this novel. Like, people are always receiving them. They're showing up out of nowhere, and most of the time they mean absolutely nothing.
Mm-hmm.
It's fun to revisit this given all the drama that we're experiencing with the Postal Service now.
Oh yeah, not the person I'm having on next week. They actually they have an outview of this book as like weirdly prophetic of like the Trumpian buildup in the 2020 election, specifically trying to co-opt the mail system to, work for his own devices.
Mm-hmm. No, one thing that I think Pinchon does really well is capture how crazy making it can be to live in a society where there are this many subcultures. And in the 60s, like, there were a bunch, but now it's only, it's metastasized.
Yeah, it is. It's very interesting right now. Actually, real quick on the letters, one of the cool things I had from entire COVID pandemic, I actually had a few friends who went on like letter writing sprees. Like they wanted to bring that out. So they would just buy all this card stock and they just spent a day like writing nice little, like, who gives a shit could have gotten done in like 3 texts, and instead they had it mailed to our house, and then we took her little text and left it on the refrigerator for 6 months.
Yeah, instead of actually launching my own podcast, I made about 1,000 business cards by hand and left them around Prospect Park. It brought a lot of followers to the Instagram, so it's a start.
Hey, there you go. I mean, I get...
I just make sure the water's warm before I jump in,
There you go. But you're doing it the right way. I'm doing it kind of wrong in that, like, we get a lot of downloads on this, and I have very few followers on any... Hey, whoever's listening to this, follow me at jessedraham because my numbers suck. A lot of my followers, like my Twitter account actually started, I was doing digital content management for a porn streaming company.
Oh my gosh, we've got to talk more about this.
Okay.
But go on, finish what you were saying.
Well, that was pretty much we had to, this blog we were running, everybody had, it was very like personality based. So,
like all pornography.
Exactly. Like my name was Victor Vasilino, okay. which was when I told my uncle I got this job, he said, like, I always, if you ever need a pseudonym, I always said if I ever got into porn, my name would be Victor Vasilino. So I took that name. Later changed to Vicky Vasilino when I realized nobody wants to read about a guy talking about porn. But yeah, when I left that job, I just kept that Twitter account and made it my personal one. So like, I'll get, whenever I have activity on there, it'll be like pretty much, there was an article I wrote about an Italian porn star retiring 6 years ago that still gets like 17 likes and comments a week.
Wow.
And the guy didn't even end up retiring. I don't get it. But anyway, so do you have any questions about my porn experience?
Yeah. Can I put you in touch with someone? I've got a male friend who has like he DMs me late at night making vague allusions to his quote porn past, and I'm like trying so hard to like let him know that many men have done porn, and it's not like a taint on your character. Like it doesn't have to be a big deal. I don't know. I just want to like put him in touch with other people. He's carrying this baggage that he doesn't need to be carrying.
Oh, well, keep in mind, I had to explain this to people. I actually had to explain a lot on like job interviews because unfortunately, most of my digital content management, like that was what I was doing. And I had like a few videos go viral, but like it was a boring office job. Like there was no, like we were just third party distribution. I got to
up like, here's this pizza you ordered.
Yeah. Well, you know what? We already talked about one problematic man. My biggest memory from that was Ron Jeremy was one of our spokesmen for the company. Yeah, and I had to be his personal bodyguard for a night. And long story short, so several hours later, me and Ron Jeremy end up backstage at a Guar concert. It was a very confusing evening, and yeah, he's guilty of everything he's accused of. That's all I have to say on that.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, he's a piece of shit. After getting everybody responding with no reason to continue living, the man doused himself in gasoline just in time for the wife to come home with her lover, the man who fired him from Yo-Yo-Dine, and gave his job to a computer. They smell gas, come in and find him. The man says, "I was about to burn myself." And fucking hilarious. The efficiency expert responds, "It took you this long. The computer that replaced you would have come to that conclusion in microseconds." He takes off his clothes and takes a shower, but notices the gasoline burns the ink off of the stamps, revealing the muted horn, and dedicates his life to the Society of Isolates. Oedipa inquires what came of the man, and the guy at the bar says he's anonymous, but you can write to him at founder, IA. So I'm stoked for how like postmodern this is, and I feel like postmodern is too broad a term because it can. I'm trying to think. I think he's structuring this with a lot of intrigue and skill, whereas I feel like a lot of postmodernism. Some authors kind of use that as a blank check to be sloppy. But I'm really impressed with how this is coming along, and I'm really intrigued by what's to come, especially with this founder.
We were talking about letters earlier. Do you get many people who write into the pod?
Sometimes, yeah. I encourage that. I give out my email every podcast.
I'm really interested in learning why the term postmodernism is so common, but post-structuralism, like you never hear anybody talk about that. And I know they're not exactly synonyms, but it's just something I've always wondered about.
I think part of it is just that, I mean, the term postmodern has been in use. It's honestly out of date because it's been in use for almost like what would you say is the birth of postmodernism in like, I guess art would probably be like visual art would probably be the origin of that. Are we almost at like 100 years of postmodernism now?
Okay, maybe that's a long discussion.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, by the way, Maxwell's Demon, we were talking about that earlier. Thought experiment, real thing, created by James Clerk Maxwell in 1867, in which he suggested, I'm reading directly from Wikipedia, so we know this is true.
Read it.
How the second law of thermodynamics might hypothetically be violated. A demon controls a small door between two compartments of gas in the thought experiment. Yeah. Did you already know that? Because I didn't know this.
They mention it in the text itself, but hold on. Actually, what would help is if I actually knew the second law of thermodynamics. Second law of thermodynamics establishes the concept of entropy as a physical, that doesn't help me. God damn it.
Arguably, this novel's only theme: miscommunication and entropy.
Okay. Huh, funny. A lot of stuff that's coming up is Maxwell's Demon. If you were constrained to put your what? That's not helping. I should have done more research, is what we're getting at here.
All right.
Yeah, I don't know. It sounds a little bit like something they're trying to say with like, it sounds similar to like the Schrodinger's cat type thing.
Mm-hmm.
Although I don't know how apt that is, because I think after the fact, they've kind of, after that, like caught some steam in the culture at large, philosophically. Schrodinger himself said, like, no, that's not at all what I was talking about. You people are all fucking idiots. And then we proceeded to not listen to him and continue quoting it forever.
Mm-hmm.
Culminating in me naming a cat Schrodinger in 2012. Anyway.
Aww.
Just before dawn, however, Oedipa encounters an old man who hands her a letter and asks her to deliver it via the waste under the freeway. She then after helping the man to his room, Oedipa finds a waste facility under the freeway, drops in a letter, and waits for the delivery man, whom she follows to Oakland and back to Berkeley after he picks up the letters and delivers them. Oedipa returns to her home in Kinneret to see her doctor, who begins shooting at her as she pulls up. He has gone crazy, obsessed with the idea that Israelis are coming to kill him because he assisted the Nazis in World War II. This is, again, Dr. Hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
After he is arrested, Oedipa sees her husband, Mucho, and spends some time with him, although she quickly sees that he has become addicted to LSD through Dr. Hilarious's program, which previously opened only to housewives, which he then opened to house husbands. And Mucho is like a lot of friends who go hippie. They're just frustratingly mellow and not really there, making it difficult to communicate effectively. Yeah. That Dr. Hilarious is something else. I forget. Did it mention what exactly he was doing with the Nazis?
I don't think it ever does. He leaves it to your imagination. Right call.
Yeah, maybe we don't need too many Nazi details. I think we know enough.
Yeah. What's the name of that character from Inherent Vice who's a Jew but wants to be a Nazi?
Oh God.
Yeah, there's a lot going on.
Oh yeah, you want to hear something hysterical?
Yes, hilarious even.
Hilarious. There is a kid I grew up with on my block that is a neo-Nazi. And fucking, I've had no contact with the guy, but still Facebook friends, partially just because, like, want to see what this motherfucker's up to. This neo-Nazi kid, who, by the way, blatantly obvious is not all European, like, very obvious from the start. He got, like, a 23andMe set up and then posted it publicly, and he's, like, a quarter Jewish, a sixth black. And he's having a bit of an existential crisis on Facebook, and it's kind of fascinating to watch a Nazi melt in on himself.
Yeah, it sounds, get out the popcorn. I'm here for that.
Yeah.
When I told you that living in this house has had its ups and downs, I had a roommate who wanted to go find herself in India for 3 months that turned into 6 months. And she had her boyfriend, who she met online shortly before leaving, be in her room in her place. She had just moved into the house, just like she had just landed this boyfriend. So I really didn't want to suddenly be the difficult roommate and be like, no, he can't live here while you're gone. And it was a little bit like a horror movie. Just like as the weeks went on, little pieces of him revealed themselves to me as we bump elbows in the middle of the night as we stagger into the bathroom and are out of it. And yeah, long story short, I'm pretty sure he was a closet white supremacist. Like, there's just, you can only be so obsessed with Nordic culture.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, oh God, it's fucking terrible how that, I feel like the Norse in particular have really been plundered by white supremacists, which is hilarious because most of these white supremacists are like Central Germany, and yet they're associating themselves with like, Central Europe, and yet they're associating themselves with Scandinavians, which they're not.
The further north you get, the more pale you get. I think it's that dumb.
But It's always so when me and my fiance got engaged, she actually got me an engagement ring as well.
Aww.
Yes. Well, it falls apart here because I asked her to get this Norse symbol, which the tree of life, Yggdrasil, which like that in Odinism like held up and connected the 7 universes or whatever, some bullshit. I knew about it from a black metal album.
I was gonna say, yeah.
Yeah. Come to find out, my super feminist gesture of me also wearing an engagement ring turns out a lot of neo-Nazis like that symbol. Whoops.
No, romance is ruined. Man.
It's well, I'm marrying a Jewish girl, so I think maybe that evens it out.
A Jewish girl or a Jewish woman, Jesse?
A Jewish, not a girl. Jewish, not yet a woman. Oh, whoa.
A Jewish Brittany. I love that for you. I don't even know you. I just love it in general.
Thank you. Everybody loves her with me. I love the exposition we get here of her slowly spying on the old man and just like following as it goes along. And also there's almost a perverse pleasure in like seeing somebody be followed who has no concern whether they're being followed or not. Like,
yeah, I mean, it's just like that sex scene. It's completely subversive of what we expect a sex scene to be. Like, Oedipa's not your ordinary woman.
No, she's not. She's very motivated. I like her a lot. Wanted to ask if you have any memories of obviously not like voyeuristic, but I feel like in public I can't help but watch people to a certain degree. And yeah, wanted to talk about that a little bit. Interesting stories of spying on people. So was driving with the fiance last night. We were picking up like a farm share box and we're stuck at a light. And the car next to us, we hear is blasting Someone Like You by Adele.
Yeah.
Nice. So immediately we're like, I want to see who's listening to this so loud because it looked like an old car, it was like a station wagon. We pull.
Like you.
What was that?
And are they someone like you?
Exactly. And I mean, if they're not, then never mind. I'll find someone who is. Turns out a little bit too close to someone like me. It's a 30-something dude with like a thick beard who looks like a day laborer, which is pretty much our area. And he is singing it passionately and wiping away tears.
Bless his heart.
Like this poor guy. I told my fiance, if you were not here, I would 100% roll the window down. And as soon as the light turned green, just yell out, "They're not good enough for you, buddy." And just go on with my life. But that was just, it's so fascinating to see somebody who is obviously out in public, but mentally are having such a private moment.
Yes.
And you just kind of stumble into that. Do you have any random memories do you think fix that?
I probably am the source material for other people's random memories of that.
Ooh, okay.
That's part of why I was a dog walker for so long. It wasn't just that I wasn't getting hired at publishing houses. It was also there was a serial rapist in the White House, and I felt like I felt very like I had some days I just had so little control over what came out of my mouth, so little control over my emotions, and I just didn't trust myself to be able to have an office job or to be accountable to other human beings for 9 hours a day, 5 days a week. I just craved cheap affection, and I had so much anxiety I needed to use exercise for many hours in a row. I mean, being a dog walker now with using these apps, it's like there's a lot of biking involved because the dogs are not close to one another the way dog walking traditionally used to be. But anyway, long story short, like, yeah, I'm definitely someone who gets emotional in public. I've cried on the subway more times than I can count. And my Instagram is inherently extremely voyeuristic. It's the place that it's my support network. It's therapy. And yeah, I was in therapy through those years that were really hard, but there's something healing about exposure.
Yeah, I'm really.
If you're in the position of being able to control how you're being exposed, of course.
Right. Yeah, and I can understand. Like, I think we're a few years away from it. We're talking about it now, but like, Honestly, now that that guy is not in the White House, it really does feel like something in the zeitgeist has just been sucked out of the air. Like once it actually went through and, Biden was in officially, even
Yeah,
though he has his own accusations and he has his own problems, but
I believe Tara Reid. I'm happy he's here, but I believe Tara Reid. Yeah.
yeah. But at least, I mean, it sucks that this is how low the bar is, that like, well, at least if he did do that, at least he has enough compunction and shame about himself to shut the fuck up about it and like, not double down.
That strategy though. Let's get real.
Again, it's strategy. You know what's funny? I've talked this over with when we've talked about having kids, because I had this with my brother when he was getting in trouble with drugs, and I told him at a young age, like, here's the rule on drugs: just be fucking sneaky about it. You know why? Because if you're being sneaky, you're at least being goddamn careful. If I find out about it, you're fucking up, which is such a horrible low bar, but at the same time, it's like, even if it's a strategy, at least like, well, I don't know. I went off the fucking rails with that one. Never mind. What I was getting at.
You said you and your siblings are all spaced 5 years apart. Your brother's 5 years younger than you.
This was actually the one that was 10 years younger than me, but yes.
Oh.
Oh, and also we're alphabetical. It's Jesse, Kenny, and Luke.
That's adorable.
Yeah, it works out.
Just the three.
What was that?
You're the oldest of three.
Yes, I am. And actually, it's like split family. Like it was my dad and my mom, and then they split, and then my mom married another man, and then had those two kids. But
okay,
yeah,
that's I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm like deeply distrustful of straight men who only grew up with brothers. Like there's just been a pattern in my life of like people who didn't have sisters just not understanding that women are people. But this has been going well so far. So
there you go.
Congrats on your your approachability.
Thank you. Well, I have a sister on my dad's side.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I've always been.
You didn't even mention when you listed your siblings. Interesting, Jesse.
But here's the thing, though.
The split family thing.
Well, no, the brothers, I grew up in the same house, whereas the sister, I would see on weekends.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So yeah, there's a difference there, but
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, straight white dudes are not
to have siblings. I can only roast anybody so hard.
See, I've always interested by like the plight of the single child, just because there's so much like
I'm not really single.
What?
Someday I'm gonna be a married child, Jesse.
Being an only.
I'm not accepting the word single as a permanent marker of my identity.
But yeah, I knew, like, I gotta be honest, growing up, like the friends I made in high school, the people who were only childs, by and large, only children. It doesn't feel right pluralizing, follow the word.
It becomes like an adjective in the regular sense, it's like, oh, she's only a child.
There's that. But I was gonna say, I actually had kind of a negative opinion of the people who didn't have siblings, because a lot of them felt very spoiled.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, to be the recipient of 100% of the attention can be a blessing and a curse. It all depends on the nature of the attention. I was surveilled pretty, yeah.
So anyway, yeah, I think that is I think that's our content for this week.
Oh, no, we wanted to talk about Pinchon and we ended up talking about ourselves. We are in San Narcisco.
Hey, no, this podcast is all about, like, we're talking about the book. We're also using it as a jumping point to just shoot the shit and talk about anything and everything.
Hey, what are books for?
Exactly. Yes. So, but yeah, so thank you for doing this.
I'm gonna read something off Schmoop really quickly because we were speculating what's the demon, right?
Yes.
So let's have the last note be a note actually on Pinchon. For the Tristero to be real, Oedipa has to function as the demon. Instead of sorting fast and slow-moving air molecules as the machine would do, Oedipa is sorting significant and insignificant facts, of which there are a ton over the course of this book. So toward the end, she begins to think of her dilemma in metaphorical, mathematical terms. Also, isn't it amazing? Kanchan was like an engineer. Like
Mm-hmm.
he's so technically minded, and he's like a giant of American literature. Anyway, as she says, it was now like walking among matrices of a great digital computer, the zeros and ones twinned above, hanging like mobiles right and left, ahead, thick, maybe endless.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. Also, this is online dating. Like, it just, there's so many aspects of life today that are being spoken about in this beautiful book.
Yeah, it really is prophetic in a lot of ways. I also I got stuck on a thought there when you mentioned he was a novelist and also an engineer. If there's anybody I really, really respect, it's people who have like the both. I feel like so much of that intelligence has always been an either or type of thing. Like I'm good at expression, social cues, understanding the structure of language. But when it comes to anything mechanical or mathematical, just like thumb up the ass, explain to me. I don't know. I don't know anything. I can't. Not only do I not know anything, I cannot make myself learn anything.
I'm of two minds, because sometimes when I'm in the company of someone who isn't literarily minded, I feel like such a writer and such a literary person. But other times I just feel so insecure, because it's that whole complex. Like you are contributing something of substance to society, and I'm just like making puns all day every day.
Oh yeah. Well, it's also the problem with that is, unfortunately, I feel like people who are literarily minded who want to create things, like the difference is there's not a bunch of like fucking 13-year-old engineers on the engineering version of TikTok who think they're doing what you're doing.
Right.
And who also might get more famous. Like
and
nobody
skilled at it a lot of the time. Yeah.
Exactly. Oh yeah. No, the internet, I don't know how anybody has ever bothered to learn an instrument after the internet, when now like I can pull up a video right now of a 5-year-old that can play guitar better than anybody who has ever existed. And that's just it. And it's like, oh wow, that's such an amazing thing, and I'll forget about it in 5 minutes. Oh shit, I just knocked my headphones out of my ears.
But no one can ever play guitar precisely the same way that you do, which is why in my insecurity I'm diving deeper into my own weirdness every day.
I think that is just the route you have to take. Like the thing that makes you most uncomfortable, that always made it hard for you to fit in, maximize it. It's a completely counterintuitive, but I think it's the best way to get noticed.
Yeah, nobody can say why I am the way I am, but nobody can imitate it either.
Exactly. Yes. All right. So, Liv, thank you very much for doing this. This is very fun. Again, now you can tell us again where you are on social media.
Well, thank you. This has been so much fun. Grad school ended for me right before the pandemic, and so I haven't been able to talk about books, and I haven't been able to be a human being, and I've been losing my mind. So my Twitter account is We Live in a Society, all one word, no E. It's a joke on the Joker. And then my Instagram, that is relatively stable and sane, and it's my public facing presence, is the same thing, except there are underscores in between each of those words. Again, no E after Liv. But my passion project, my baby, my memoir, my forthcoming podcast, that's blurbslut, and that's the Instagram.
Nice. All right, blurbslut. Go. Do you have any idea when you're going to be start putting that out?
Once my closest friend like literally forces me to, hopefully by the end of February.
All right. Well, yeah. All right. We'll be sure to promote that when it comes out, guys. Go check out Blurbslut. We live in a society, no E and underscores between the ones. Look at it
on Instagram. Yeah.
On Instagram. Yeah, guys, go to your podcast thing and click it. I got to stop knocking these goddamn headphones out. Yeah, click it. We'll have it in the detail of the episode description. Liv, thank you so much for doing this. Going to end this episode the way I end every episode. I'm going to stop recording, but you and I can keep talking for a minute. See ya.